Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come. We have finally reached that point of the news cycle before a Sonic game releases where the leaks for it have officially appeared. Now the Sonic series is no stranger to having fake leaks made about it. I mean, do you remember Sonic Rift? That was not too long ago. Actually, it kind of was 3 years ago. But as well as fake leaks, there have also been a handful of leaks that have actually been real. There's been Sonic Wars in the past, and more recently, Sonic Rangers / Frontiers leaks. Now what's funny about the Sonic Rangers leaks is that they were all sneaking under the radar for a long time, just chilling out on 4chan, and nobody decided to make a video on them or read them at all. But then with the teaser for Sonic Frontiers back in 2021 that Sonic Central actually released, that's when people started to notice that, hang on, this leak kind of lines up with a couple things with this teaser, so that's when we started to actually read into the leaks and find out that, yeah, it's actually true. And now to avoid a repeat of what happened with that, I decided that in today's video, we'll check out these 3 Sonic Frontiers 2 leaks. Because at the end of the day, even if they are fake, we're not really losing much. I mean, they are a leak, so it's not confirmed anyways, so yeah. But if they are real, then whoop-a-doo, we find a leak that's real. Nobody loses here, really. So let's not waste any more time. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's take a look at the leaks at hand. Onto the most reliable source of information, 4chan, WeSonic, Rush 3D. Now before we get into the leaks, remember, these are all leaks, so take them with a grain of salt, because they could be fake, you never know. But anyway, starting off with the first one. This was actually posted on the Thursday, 11th of July, 2024, so it's been a couple of months actually already, 2 months, sheesh. And it reads as follows. I have an insider who has a lot of info on Sega IPs and their current development status. Yep, sounds like a typical Sonic leak. Anyways, carrying on. I've been able to see footage of several in-dev Sega projects, Jet Set Radio, Persona 6, and a Chow game. I will share what I currently know about the new open world Sonic, since I'm also a fan. Lol. Now just from that, the name drops there are kind of accurate. We know there's a new Jet Set Radio game in the works. Persona 6 is also in the works, I'm pretty sure. And then a new Chow game. We've heard leaks from Midori before he got his account closed down, and we actually figured out that it's actually a mobile Chow game, so I'm not sure if they're talking about the same one, we'll see. Anyways, here's the actual leak. Working title is Frontiers 2. No surprises there, it's a sequel to probably the first open zone game, Sonic Frontiers. Yeah, makes sense. Game is developed by Morio Kishimoto, with virtually the entire team returning from Frontiers. Some new staff from previous Boost games are returning as game designers. And yeah, this also makes sense. Kishimoto made the first game, he's going to be leading the second game now. Makes complete sense. But with the new staff part, with Shadow Generations, we do know that some of the designers from Sonic Generations are actually returning to work on that game, so perhaps they're not being abandoned after that one game, but instead moving on to this next game as well. If that's the case, then that's actually pretty solid, because those original Sonic Generation developers are extremely talented, so if they're also working on Sonic Frontiers 2, that game is probably going to be in good hands, especially with how good Shadow Generations is actually looking. Kishimoto's team has effectively doubled in size after Frontiers' success in Japan. Sega's trying to maintain AAA output with the open world format and Sonic Team's future releases, so polish and quality are at the forefront. And this is also something that we can actually kind of corroborate. We know after Frontiers released and after all of its success and everything, Sega have actually been hiring some new people for Sonic Team, so again, this makes sense. Game began conceptualization shortly after Frontiers' release, and began full-scale development in October of 2023 after the last DLC was released. Again, this all makes sense. I'm not really hearing anything that's actually not true here, but just because it's not false doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually true, if that makes any sense, because these could just be very good guesses and they could just be using information that we already know, so there's always that. Only on current gen consoles, PC and Switch 2, no legacy Switch release. Again, this makes sense because apparently Switch 2 is actually coming out next year at some point, so yeah, for them to abandon Switch 1, because I can't lie, Switch 1 has been holding back the Sonic series for quite a while, especially Frontiers 1, because the difference between the PS5 and the Switch 1 is quite significant, so for them to finally abandon the Switch 1, that is a good thing to do. But the question is just how powerful is the Switch 2 gonna be, because from what I've been hearing, it's pretty much as powerful as the PS4 and Xbox One, so hopefully that'll mean that the games will actually look a whole lot better than right now. Cyberspace will be returning in some way. We'll be following similar design philosophies to the Final Horizon Horizon. Cyberspace returning makes sense. I mean, that was kind of part of the gameplay loop from Frontiers 1, so that coming back from Frontiers 2, again, makes sense. But what do you mean by design philosophies in the Final Horizon? Because even though I don't hate the Final Horizon cyberspace levels, they didn't really have one specific design philosophy. I think the only one consistent design philosophy in the Final Horizon was maybe having more slopes without dash pads and maybe camera control and being fully 3D, but apart from that, every single stage was kind of different from each other. I mean, you got the one with 4G with the speedometer, you got the rocket boost, getting animals, like, there was no specific and consistent design philosophy for all those stages, so that doesn't really make any sense, but I guess having more slopes and less automation is what they kind of mean here. Only one giant island. This is certainly interesting. Very interesting indeed. Frontiers, as we know, has 5 islands. Well, technically 4, and 3 even more technically. And the reason for having multiple islands is obviously to actually split up the different environments. We have grass, sand, and volcano. So to have one giant island, I guess that would mean they would combine all of the different environments into this one massive island, having different biomes and whatnot. And if it is one giant island, I guess we can be a bit more happy that they're not just going to reuse the island from Frontiers 1, because I'm not going to lie, that's kind of one of my biggest worries, that they're going to reuse Kronos, Aris, and Chaos all in Frontiers 2 in some way, because I hope that does happen, man. I really hope it does not happen. But if there's going to be one giant island, I guess they can't do that now, so that's something. Footage from the open world suggests they're attempting a less realistic art style. The environment the player was exploring was a lot like Angel Island Zone, and there were some subterranean areas. Judging from the feedback from Frontiers 1, this makes complete sense for them to go for a more cartoony art style. I personally actually didn't mind the realistic art style. I just think that I could have had more interesting environments, maybe more akin to Sonic 06 or Sonic Unleashed, but I wouldn't mind a more cartoony art style like Angel Island Zone or whatever. It at least means that the game will actually look a lot more like a Sonic game, at least to casuals, so this is good, I suppose. And environments are not finished at all. A crap ton of placeholders and asset reuse since it's early, and yeah, makes sense. It's been in the works for about a year, yeah, no surprise there. There are NPCs, well, it looks like villages from what I saw. Other areas are filled with enemies which could attack said villages. Every inhabited area has some level of platforming. Now this is actually a big step up from Frontiers 1 because, let's be honest, the side stories do not count as NPCs. There were basically no NPCs in Frontiers 1 is what I'm trying to say here. And that was also something that people actually complained about, so them adding that to Frontiers 2, yeah, makes sense. I hope these NPCs can actually lead to some, side missions rather than just side stories, because that'd be a whole lot more interesting. Maybe some challenges where you have to run from one side of the island to another in a short time limit or something. Something like that would be nice. And apparently there's some enemies which attack these villages that the NPCs is actually in, so kind of like a Minecraft raid or something, which I've actually stolen from the next leak that we'll be looking at, so we won't look at that too much right now. Combat looks virtually unchanged from Frontiers. Now while that might sound like something to worry about right now, I wouldn't worry about it really. Combat was one of the things that people actually praised in Frontiers 1, so for them not to be worrying about that right now and to just worry about the actual open zone and the control more than the combat, I'd say that makes more sense. Combat is probably going to be one of the things that gets changed later on in the development, not right now, so even though it's not changed right now, I would assume it gets changed later on, so I wouldn't worry about that to be honest. There is a boost like Frontiers, but it's not the main way to go fast. It's only really useful at slower speeds to launch you forwards. Conserving momentum is key. Now here's where I think it gets a bit suspicious. As we know, Frontiers 1 had 0 momentum. And no, the sliders in Update 2 is not momentum. That doesn't count, mate. That's not counting at all. And in Shadow Generations, momentum is also not there. So after less than a year of development, do I really believe that they've already figured out how to put momentum in the game when they couldn't even do it in a year for Final Horizon? I'm not too sure. Actually, speaking of Final Horizon, actually, to be fair, Knuckles, only Knuckles, had momentum in his rolling. Okay, maybe I do believe it, actually. I'm not sure. The game has been in full development for less than a year, so not a lot is finished and what is primitive. It is junk, but not in the same way as Frontiers. Very early footage though, basically telling us what we already know and assumed. Expect a late 2026 release, possibly 2027. Short teaser mid 2025. Now again, here's where things get a bit weird for this leak, like, they're choosing basically every single year that something could happen, and they're gonna probably say, oh yeah, if it actually happens then yeah, I was right guys, like, stick with 1 year man, like, come on. Is it 2026 or 2027? Pick a side, man. Come on. And yeah, I guess those dates do make sense. So if a teaser does come out next year, then we kind of can believe this somewhat, but at the same time, not really, because that's just a decent guess, so I don't know about that. But overall, this leak so far, yeah, it sounds kind of believable, kind of promising as well. It's just an alright leak, to be honest. Not really to get excited about, it's just, yeah, it's certainly a leak. Right, moving on to the next leak, which is right here. Thursday, what is that, 9/5? So is that American or British dating? I'm not sure. That could either be the 9th of May this year or the 5th of September this year. I think it might be September actually, because that's probably why it's been brought up recently. I don't know. Lucky to have an insider who can provide me with Sega info. Sonic dev footage has also been floating around the company. I saw roughly 12 minutes and already know a bit of dev info about this game. The working title for this game is Sonic Frontiers 2, directed by Morio Kishimoto. The game has been in full development since a couple of months before the Final Horizon released. AAA dev size, set in a floating island called Summit Spire. As you can imagine, it's related to Angel Island, but it's on top of another bigger, grounded island. The main island floats via a digitized version of the Master Emerald. Now here's something that's actually interesting, so they've actually name dropped something from the game, so if we hear this name later down the line for this game, then yeah, we can go back to this leak and say that this leak was actually true then. So, Summit Spire, it's related to Angel Island, and there's a digitized version of the Master Emerald that keeps it afloat. Interesting. I'm guessing this means that there's going to be more lore about the emeralds in this game, carrying on from Frontiers 1. Yeah, makes sense. The map is way bigger than any island in Frontiers. I mean, if it's one island, then yeah, it's gotta be. Movement is drastically different as well. Camera is closer to Sonic, but goes further as you gain speed. It is very dynamic, but also very clunky. Okay, that's good to hear that actually changing stuff with the camera, because it was actually kind of a bit boring in Frontiers 1, so doing stuff like this, yeah, sounds pretty good. Obviously, very early in development, and the game is buggy, but seemingly the combat remains unchanged, almost same exact moves as Frontiers. A good bit of the map is kind of like Green Forest. There is a kingdom area, and also an area that resembles Sky Sanctuary, but blue. Alright, more name dropping stuff then, so a kingdom area and blue Sky Sanctuary and a Green Forest. I mean, okay, that's kind of a decent guess, except for maybe this Blue Sky Sanctuary one, so yeah, again, nothing too crazy just yet. I'm pretty sure they're reusing assets from Sonic X Shadow Generations Kingdom Valley. There's not a single area in the game that looks even halfway finished. And again, assets from Kingdom Valley and Shadow Generations, I mean, Kingdom Valley is pretty much just grass and rocks and stuff, so it just could be different assets but looks the same as that, because again, it's just grass and rocks and stuff, so I guess, yeah, like, again, just a decent guess. There are portals underground that are presumably cyberspace. I know for a fact that cyberspace is in the game, and I'm guessing this is it. So cyberspace is actually going through portals underground then, not like little throne things from Frontiers 1. Again, interesting. Villagers with live NPCs is kind of like a Minecraft pillager raid where sometimes you have to save the village for a reward. No humans. And this is where I got that Minecraft villager raid thing from earlier, so that seems kind of cool. I wonder how often these raids actually happen, if it's like a random thing, or maybe you trigger it like Minecraft, I don't know. And the no humans bit does make sense, because if it's related to Angel Island, then yeah, it's going to be animals and stuff. Maybe another tribe of ancients? Probably. Psyloop is a returning feature. Now, some people said that they don't actually want the Psyloop to return, but me personally, I think it was a pretty good feature. Could have been fleshed out a little more, so bringing it back for Frontiers 2, I don't mind that actually. But does it use the same visual effects though? Because I thought that stuff was actually specific to the Starfall Island, so that returning in Frontiers 2 would kind of not make sense lore-wise, so maybe it's just something that Sonic can just do now without the Starfall Islands. We'll see. And again, maybe it's just their part of early development footage, because the combat is the same as Frontiers 1, so it could also get removed. We'll have to see. The gimmick of this game is the Surge ability, which is basically the boost, but way faster, and is used to gain crazy momentum. It doesn't last long, and has to be charged up with the rings, kind of like a regular boost. Momentum. So it sounds like, what's that one fan game called? Sonic... what's it, that Green Hill Paradise or something? I think it's Green Hill Paradise Act 2, I think it's called. So it sounds like that, where instead of reaching a max speed to get a crazy boost, you have to get rings and then you can activate a boost. Yeah, that's what it kind of sounds like, and you got momentum in there, so I guess that sounds interesting. It would mean that the boost is in there in some way, shape or form, which makes sense because Kishimoto only knows boost, so for him to just dish that immediately, it wouldn't make any sense really, so keeping it in there in some way, shape or form makes sense. But there's also experimenting with momentum, so again, this is kind of believable. But is it real? That's the real question. I know that the director for Unleashed is returning this time, just as a game designer, and some peeps from Colours and Gens are back in similar roles. Popin. I mean, early in development game makes sense. Hopefully we can assume that's going to get fixed later on when the game actually releases. Hopefully. Sega is giving Sonic Team the resources to match their confidence in the future of Sonic. Again, makes sense. Now what's interesting about these two leaks is that they sound very similar, so either that means that they're both fake because people have just been saying to each other, yeah, I'm going to do this leak at one point in time, then a couple months later down the line, you do the exact same thing but change it up a bit just to make it less fake or whatever. I guess that could be an option here, but it's either that or this actually makes it kind of real because people are seeing similar things and there's actually a concrete idea from Sonic Team and they're all seeing the same game, so it's actually real. Either one of those options, we don't know yet. But for the third and final leak we have right here, the next mainline Sonic game is projected to be a light continuation of Sonic Frontiers. You won't need to play Frontiers to understand it, but some plot points will transfer over. Only the basic plot points are established right now, as Sega higher-ups are very, very involved. And yeah, this makes sense with any Sonic game really. I mean, with Sonic Adventure 2, you don't actually have to play Sonic Adventure 1 to understand any of that, so again, makes sense. And Sonic 4 Episode 2, you don't need to play Sonic 4 Episode 1 to understand it, because, let's be honest, it's Sonic 4. And yeah, basically this makes sense. Sonic sequels never really have full involvement from the first game, so Eggman and Sage visit an isolated island that secretly houses a digitized version of the Master Emerald that's been deactivated for centuries. It has a name, but is being kept secret from my insider. So Eggman and Sage are in the game, yeah, makes sense, and they found this digitized Master Emerald that we heard from the previous leak, so again, more stuff is being repeated here, so is it real or is it just multiple people having like a massive plan to fake the whole Sonic community or something? I don't know. Suddenly activated, which summons all the Chaos Emeralds. The island shoots up into the sky like Angel Island and basically traps all the residents. These are the Miso people. Okay, some more name drops here then. The Miso people. I'm assuming another tribe or something that lives on this island then, so interesting. I'm guessing those are going to be the NPCs that are not humans. Makes sense. Sonic and Tails track the Chaos Emerald readings and go over. The plan is to stop Eggman from harnessing the power of the digitized Master Emerald, and Sonic has to find the Chaos Emeralds. Sounds like a Sonic game plot, so nothing surprising there. Endgame is planned to be like Unleashed, with a proto-Eggman land being built on the island. Again, that sounds like a Sonic game plot. Nothing surprising going on yet. The game ends with Sage leaving Eggman's side after witnessing his evil and going about life her own way. That is interesting, I suppose. Don't know how I feel about that. I mean, Sage's whole thing in Frontiers 1 was wanting a family, so would they really just abandon all that in Frontiers 2 and make her leave Eggman? Would Eggman even let Sage leave? I don't know. I mean, Sage seemed pretty on Eggman's side here and didn't mind that it was evil. She just wanted to serve her family and her creator, so I don't know how I feel about this. Interesting. Lore. This aspect might change entirely. The island is called the Summit Spire. The Miso people of the island were in direct conflict with the Ancients, who created the digitized Master Emerald before they came to Earth. Pretty much confirmed this is what they were using before they came to Earth. So yeah, the Miso people are linked to the Ancients then. So they are continuing the lore from Frontiers 1 with the Emeralds, Ancients, all that stuff then. Basically, the remaining Ancients who live on Angel Island kicked out the people who originally lived there and sent them to Summit Spire. In revenge, they stole the digitized Master Emerald and nearly fully wiped out the Ancients. Recognizing the history of war, the Miso swore to deactivate the digitized Master Emerald forever. So from my understanding here, the Miso people, when the Ancients came to Earth, pretty much nearly wiped them out, and then a few years down the line, they realized that they didn't want to repeat history, so got rid of that digitized Master Emerald or something, and then Eggman finds it again or something on the island when it's actually in the water or whatever it is now. Okay, that sounds kind of interesting actually. I hope they can actually animate it properly and everything so we get it fully fleshed out. Fundamentally, it's a story about whether it's correct to limit someone else's freedom for your own. I don't particularly like Ian Flynn, but he does have more involvement beyond script writing in this game. And then that is the end of all the leaks in today's video then, so it all sounds interesting. It sounds very closely linked to the original Frontiers from what I'm hearing here then. Which is a good thing, by the way. I think that's a good thing personally. Frontiers 1 had a lot of good ideas and stuff that was actually executed pretty well, so for them to just throw that all out the window for the sequel makes basically no sense. Why try to reinvent the wheel when you've got a good base already? again, makes no sense. So what they should be doing, and it sounds like what they are doing actually, is building on that formula, on that base, and just making it even better than it already was. Now what I do find interesting here is that so far, there's been no mentioning of multiple playable characters, and I don't think they'd abandoned that after the Final Horizon, so either this leak is fake, obviously, or they just haven't seen it yet, so that's yet to be revealed. If we do hear anything relating to Summit Spire or the Miso people later down the line, then I guess we have these leaks to actually credit then. So yeah, that gives us a good little expiration date for these leaks then. Anyways, that about does it for today's video then. So yes, the leaks for Sonic Frontiers 2 have officially begun to spring. The question is now, are these leaks real or fake? We have yet to know about that, but obviously, again, later down the line, if you don't hear anything about the Summit Spire or the Miso people, we know that these leaks are, unfortunately, fake. But let me know what you guys think of these leaks. Do you believe them or not? Let me know down below. I'd love to see what you guys have to say. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, especially that last one. Don't forget to become unleashed by hitting that join button down below. Remember, it's not necessary. And I'll see you all next time. Peace.